Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Grape to Grain live tasting live from Manchester. How's everybody doing? Welcome and thank you all very much for joining us here on this wet and shitty Manchester evening. Yes, indeed, we are absolutely loving life right now. Getting pissed on royally, but we are loving life, ladies and gents, because we are joined by the glorious, the one, the only, the queen of Grape to Grain. Now moves on to bigger things. It's Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny Frost. What's up, honey? How you doing? Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
A pleasure, it's all right. Can't complain. Like you said, cozy inside on a horrible evening. So yeah.
I know you can't argue with that when we're getting pissed on outside, and we do have a rather glorious selection of wines to enjoy today. Oh boy! But tell us what's going on, man. What's happening? You are fully ensconced in your new role. You have been for quite a while now.
Yeah.
All of these wines are obviously from your portfolio. We don't have Barry here to say how mediocre your wines are compared to his.
Hey, I've got rage. What can we say? We're a different beast. It's a different beast. But yeah, no, I've been in my new sort of role for about 6-7 months now. So it's gone so quick. But it's essentially a lot of the same things that I learned. Obviously with you guys. Hosting tastings, doing events, just talking about wine, really. So a lot's changed and not that much has changed at the same time. And, it's lucky that I was familiar with quite a lot of the wines already because we already loved quite a lot of them at Grape. So, yeah, I've had a nice head start in that, let's say. So,
man, yeah. I'm super proud of you because you always were an asset to us. So it's great to see you moving on and proving that wasn't I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say that wasn't just a one-off. Yeah, which is a fluke actually. Yeah. There you go. And you're absolutely smashing it. How you find the difference in role? It is obviously very, very different. And you didn't go directly into the job at Boost, now, did you? You bounced around some really nice gaffs. Yeah. Not necessarily finding the right fit for you. Do you feel like you found that now? Do you feel like this is singing to you in a language that you understand?
Yeah, 100%. Like there's a lot of flexibility with what I do as well. Literally the same as with Grape. No 2 days are ever the same. No 2 weeks are ever the same. Evening is different from the night. It's one of those things that it's an industry. A wine itself is an industry that is so dynamic. It's always moving. It's always changing, and it's just really nice to be part of. It's still a relatively small wine company in the grand sort of like scheme of things, but yeah, it's nice that in a similar way my voice is still heard. People value my opinion, and yeah, it's just a really lovely group to be in.
From the outside looking in and seeing your voice not being heard, without wishing to get into a sort of a slagging match or anything like that, seeing your voice not being heard always felt like a fumbling of somebody with incredible passion, talent, work ethic, interest, charisma, like positivity, and to see that sort of being sort of missed and fumbled about always felt like incredibly frustrating. So I'm fucking stoked. How's both sides of the vine going?
We've taken a bit of a sabbatical on it because Lauren, so my podcasting partner, so she was living in Bordeaux for a little while, doing a vintage, so doing harvest over there. So obviously I will talk about vintage and harvest and how labor intensive that is a little bit later with one of the stories of the wines, but you're doing 9-10 sort of hours out in the vineyard picking, and then you're coming back and doing another 5-6 in the winery. It's like it's impossible to kind of do both, so we decided to just take a bit of a break on it. If you're going to do something, do it well, so yeah.
But also, and if I've got any advice, also don't let the gap be too long because it's hard to pick up again.
Yeah, for sure. No, we have been you call it a gap, but actually I've got so much content. We've used that time to just create content and research and visit wineries. So I've been, left, right and center, like abroad traveling, which has been really, really nice. A massive perk of the job at the moment, and all for basically gathering content, gathering the stories of the wines. And yeah, in the last 3-4 months, for example, I've been to France, Italy, Portugal, Spain. And that's just the start of it, So yeah, like I said, always learning, always just keeping chugging on, really.
Jenny Frost, ladies and gents, here she is. Right, back to tonight. But whilst we've got your attention, we've got another tasting on next week. Unfortunately, Baz is back. Barry is also currently swanning around the world. He's currently in Iceland, reaping the reward of having got everybody that he knows to pour his beer Krombacher. So he's currently in Iceland, posting a few selfies.
Was he in Germany?
He was in Germany. I think it's called the Purity festival, right? And so he's over there like, I don't know, just looking scornfully down his nose at a load of Germans, just constantly saying, your granddad stole my granddad's bike. Which like, come on, like, he wasn't even your bike that got stolen. So I think we could probably move on from this. I was like, no, we will never move on. And he's now in Iceland, but he'll be back next Friday. We've got a region spotlight as opposed to this producer spotlight, region spotlight on Rioja. So if you want to have a little go on that, head to greattograin.co.uk. And for those of you that are on this G2G fam, get you 20% off that ticket price. Get yourself booked on right now. We've also got some amazing tastings coming up in store as well. Have a look at the website. There's loads all the way up until Christmas. So get booked on. And our tasting room on the first floor of Prestwich is now complete, and it will be open for people from next week. So yeah, indeed, it's habitable. It's not yet. It's not. There's still a load of shit in there. Everything that came out of Rami kind of got dumped on the first floor. There was a point where the entirety of the ground floor of Prestwich and the entirety of the first floor of Ramsbottom was just full of dirty shit that had just come back from Rami. It was emotional, you know. Like when you walk in somewhere, you're looking around going, I can't move that there because all of that shit's there, but where's that going to go? I don't know. I just don't know.
Tetris IRL.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be a full-on tasting room.
Are you going to have a launch? Are you going to do it?
I don't know, really. I don't know because we're not.
A launch. You need to do it like
yes.
Look at me.
I should do. Maybe I should have been a little bit smart about this. Maybe I should have teased it. Maybe I should have gone like, ladies and gentlemen, big news coming on Monday. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe. Don't miss out on this.
Guess what it is.
But yeah, it's own animatic up there as well. There'll be a big telly, so we can do like in-person screen sharing like we do.
Football.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Oh, no. All right.
No, that would have been interesting at the most recent World Cup in France when we could have done. No, we wouldn't have done that. It would have been absolutely fucking ridiculous. Hi Jen, hooray! Says Captain.
Hello.
So that's on next Friday, the Rioja tasting. Then for the whole of the rest of the month and all the way into or up to New Year's Eve, we've got tastings galore on the website. Head there. Remember, use G2G fam, get yourself 20% off. And also we've got a brand new gift voucher, but you should have all received an email on that, so we don't need to go into that in too much detail. Back to tonight, Alpha Box and Dice. Their mission,
yes,
if you like, my understanding of their mission was to come up with an alphabet of wine. Now, the alphabet of wine, it's taking the plethora, the unique situation within Australia, isn't it, is that you have the entire world's worth of grapes and viticultural techniques and vinification techniques to choose from, because you're not handcuffed by 250 years worth of Rioja.
Yeah.
And you must do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, then you can only charge, 10 pence on the pound for the bottle. You can do whatever you want. And with that luxury and variety comes the opportunity to really go as far as you want in any whatever direction you want. To describe them as international varietals is obviously is a bit of a misnomer, because all varietals are international when it comes to Australia. There aren't any indigenous varietals. They're all in varietals that come, but they focus on a few different. So Shiraz, there's lots of Chardonnay, lots of Pinot Noir, there's lots of Cabernet.
It's like some have a longer history there than others. Like
exactly. Yeah. But what these guys at Alpha Box and Dice are doing is going and picking sort of different grapes to do different jobs with different terroirs and let them express themselves in a truly unique South Australian fashion. So tell us how the brand came to be and why people should buy it.
So like Tom said, they're kind of going off piece to the off piece. They're kind of really kind of doing their own thing in a climate which you can already pretty much do what you want. But a lot of winemakers stick with the biggies, like Tom said, like Shiraz, like Malbec, like Cab Sauv as well. Aussie Cab is quite big as well. Chardonnay, like you said, people stick not safe, but they're going to go for the reliable options. These guys, they're not going reliable. They're not really kind of reading from anyone else's rule book.
I haven't seen a Chardonnay in their entire portfolio. I actually, no, that's a lie. I have seen, but it's like one of the tiny little production lines, not the kind of their core range. But they do have a Cabernet. But if you look at the lineup of what we got today, these aren't kind of go-to grapes, are they?
Yeah, it's not like you taste the Cab and go, oh, this is going to be, it tastes like an Aussie Cab. It's almost like if you had it in a blind taste and you couldn't really place it, because there is so much kind of Mediterranean influence on the wines. And it's a really, really young winery. So Australia is a young wine producing sort of nation, but this is an even younger winery. So founded in 2008, so literally the early 2000s, and it was founded with this kind of with this kind of idea in mind to not do what everyone else is doing. And then it kind of got a bit of a reinvention in 2016 when the head winemaker Sam Becchetta started, and we'll talk about him a little bit more in depth as we're going through the wines as well. But he's got a CV which is just, I read it and it made me blush. I was like, it's really impressive. And
Chippendale dancer.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Played
really my type, yeah.
Yeah. He's done it all.
No, he's been to Barolo, that's my kind of guy. So yeah, it's a winery that it's got so much young energy as well. So when the head winemaker joined in 2016, he was only 26 years old. So
which is crazy.
Yeah.
In an industry which
France, would you?
No, in an industry which that being said, if you remember the winemaker was it Maison Les Alexandrins, or he was in the Rhone. We had him on a live Meet the Maker. He was also very young as well, but that was an anathema. That was like in an industry where
it's passed down.
Grey hair and maroon trousers are lauded beyond anything else. To have some kid turning up age 26. I mean, what the fuck do you know at 26? Well, he knows how to run one of the best wineries in South Australia. So Christ alone.
Honestly, it's absolutely outstanding. And you can really feel that energy as well, not just in obviously the labels are nice, the packaging is nice, we all like the way they look, they stand out on the shelf. But
needs to have curb appeal, otherwise, it's hard sell.
Yeah, but it's the energy in the wines as well, which hopefully we'll taste as we go through. They've all just got like a real thread of sort of, vivacious brightness about them. So yeah.
Well, let's get fucking cracking. You guys all have your menus. The back of it is blank, so we can use it as a reverse. Jen, this used to be your job to put these menus together. It's now my job. So please don't. It's your design. please don't look out for spelling mistakes, because there will be plenty. Let's pour wine number one. It is it's the Golden Delicioso, which has replaced the Golden Mullet Fury. Which, if you want to know whether these guys at Alpha Box and Dice take themselves too seriously, no, they named a wine Golden Mullet Fury, which is fucking let's go. But this is the Golden Delicioso, a new expression, Semillon, no longer with the addition of Riesling as the Golden Mullet Fury did. Golden Delicioso, the color is wild.
It's literally golden.
It's absolutely wild. So for those of you that are on this tasting, we don't need to go through how to taste wine. You've all done it 100 times, but use the blank of your menu so that we can analyze the wine and dissect the wine properly. We're going to look with our eyes, then look with our nose, and then look with our mouth. Jen, would you mind awfully dissecting this delicious wine for us, please? The Golden Delicioso Semillon from Alpha Box and Dice.
Let's go. So, like we said, we're having a look at it first. You can tell that it's bright golden. It's really clear in the glass. This is sort of a lower intervention wine, but it isn't hazy whatsoever. It's still completely sort of crystal clear. That lovely sort of warmth, that orange color tells you it's had a little bit of skin contact, which we already knew. The name gives it away.
If people went for a Semillon, expecting it to be like this, chances are they would be in for a rude surprise. This isn't classic Semillon territory.
No, but I mean, Semillon itself it's usually blended with Sauvignon Blanc, for example. So to say that these guys were blended it with Riesling was already weird to start off with. So this is a single expression usually has a real sort of clear straw, almost water white, completely clear appearance in the glass. Whereas this is, like you said, completely different. So if you were expecting a normal Semillon and you poured this out, it would not be what you're expecting. However, what this does have, it accentuates, we'll get onto it when we talk about the palate, but it really accentuates the natural sort of oily texture that you usually find in a Semillon. So with like Sim Sav, so Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon blends, the Sauvignon provides the aromatics and the Semillon provides the texture, and you can always feel this weighty oiliness like you get in a Viognier. Here it's like foghorn, you know what I mean? It's just really accentuated, and it's really kind of giving the Semillon its own sort of.
Now the color isn't by accident, and the fact that it is wildly different to a kind of run of the mill cookie cutter Semillon from the southwestern part of France is because it's had 2 weeks worth of skin maceration. Is that right?
Yeah, so it gives that really sort of like warm hue, that warm color into the liquid. So all of that color, again, as we probably know, is coming from the skins of the white grapes themselves. Transfers a little bit of color, and with it tannin as well, which you'll feel on the palate. So you already know. Your mouth is already kind of getting prepared that it's going to be a grippy sort of, experience. A radically different approach, or an ancient modern approach to winemaking. Yeah, and orange wine is by far and wide, it's just gaining traction upon gaining traction, and these cleaner expressions are definitely kind of dominating the market as well. Orange wine that's not going to kind of scare you off.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, isn't there? Let's be honest, because that kind of filtered through a tramp sock, super bitty, super hazy orange wine. It appeals to the margins of the market, but most people would be slightly put off by that, and so this can be a good gateway into the unique benefits of an orange wine, a skin contact white wine, that it can do different things that a regular white wine just simply cannot.
And it's like, how many times are you going to drink that hazy, crazy little number? You're probably going to grab it off the shelf and drink it once, whereas these guys want you to go back and drink it again.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's that sort of, that wow factor. You need the wow factor, but you also need the longevity as well. Because these guys are building, like I said, they're building a catalog, they're building an alphabet of wine. You want to be able to go back into it.
If you can only go visit something once, and this doesn't just apply. Sometimes I'll be in my bonnet about sort of low intervention wine rather than using that phrase, natural wine. Sometimes I have a beer in my bonnet about it, and most of the time it's quite tongue in cheek, because if these are well-made wines, made with passion, made with sort of a focus on the grapes, a focus on the terroir, focus on, actually all it means is that they're using practices which allow the grapes and the terroir to really express themselves most clearly. But it's not just natural wine. Like if you had the most sort of rank smoky mezcal, that's a one stop. Oh wow, that's interesting. I never ever need to or want to drink that again. An IPA that is 17.8% and tastes like getting punched in the face with wet hops, that also is going to be that's interesting, but I'm not going to go back to it again and again. And obviously we want to have people drinking these wines again and again and again. Otherwise it's masturbation. Otherwise it is, look how interesting and complicated a wine I can make. Yeah, but nobody enjoyed drinking it twice. Oh right, fuck. That must count as a fail.
It's interesting you say that with beer as well. So the market is actually going back to, I know I've come back to kind of drinking more classic expressions, like, a good well-made lager, I sit down and enjoy, like, even just like a rice lager or a lighter, like cold IPA, something like that. Like I've gone away from the big sort of like dippers and tippers and crazy lassi mango milkshake, fruited, sour, crazy. Like I've gone back to, and a lot of people have, they've enjoyed that craziness, and then you're going back to the classics. And this is almost kind of, you're enjoying what's seen as like a crazier style of wine, but actually it's a really classically made wine. It's an ancient style of wine.
You're using interesting techniques to make a unique wine that people want to drink over and over again. That's nothing but legitimate.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. Let's keep going.
Okay. On the nose. So on the nose, this does have for me those classic sort of dried fruit aromas, but it's really perfumed as well.
It's got some really fascinating. It's clearly it's had some
nutty.
Yeah, a little bit of oxidation. I fucked this up last week as well.
Really?
Oxidation. It's clearly a bit oxidized. Oxidative. There we go. So that's what happens when you actually do the fucking do the qualifications and you get the words right. But that slightly oxidative characteristic gives it sort of an amazing sort of almond nuttiness as well. That kind of like that sherry-ish, sort of fascinating, multi-layered, complex onion skin sort of vibe.
Nice and spicy too. So after those like florals, you get a little bit of nuttiness. Then I go more for spice too. Almost like the baking spices, like a little bit of nutmeg in there. Maybe even just, I don't know, there's a lot going on the nose.
In terms of ABV on this, we're 13.5%, which is also high for a white wine.
So these guys are boozy. The later ones, just forget about
it.
Like,
booziness can be a massive barrier if it's used inelegantly.
Yeah. If you
wine integrated booze,
it's a beautiful thing.
Is a glorious thing. It's that's the magic. That's the transmogrification. That's the transformation. Exactly.
That's
is that booze?
Wine is different. Alcohol gives it the structure. It gives it.
But it does have to be integrated. Like everything within winemaking. If there's one thing which is out of whack, out of balance, then the whole ship is going to be wobbly, right?
Amazing. Let's dive in. Chin chin.
Oh, that perfume thing just really hit me right at the end there. Oh.
You feel the texture, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. Which is so far up my strata. I like a weighty white wine.
And then you get this like after of like pure sort of apricot, peach, blossom, a little bit of like it's like hawthorn, like the yellow. What's the thing? There's a beer that they used to make, that Wild Beer used to make, and it was brewed with this, and it's quite polarizing.
Wild Beer used to make it, then chances are it was probably fucking, I don't know, with like
sea buckthorn or something like that. Like it's got some sort of.
Ladies and gentlemen, sea buckthorn, ingredients you had no idea existed until right this very second.
But it has this kind of like wild herbiness to it, is what I'm saying. It's savory, it's complex, it's layered, it's textured. You get a little bit of warmth.
There's a bit of smoke coming there from the 10 months that it spent in barriques. But the barriques that it's gone into, I mean, barriques are big, right?
Yeah, they're the big boys.
They're the big ones.
Yeah.
And when they describe it as being seasoned, then that means that they're old, multi-used barriques. So they're not imparting huge amounts of oakiness. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't pick up oak on this. I'm more getting the oak as well. In this case, is more kind of used like for texture too. So it's accentuating that sort of like natural texture that Semillon already has. Completely wild fermented. So that's where those sort of more savory, herby undertones are coming from. A little bit of the spice might come through from maybe that time in barrel, but it's not really used to add any flavor. You're not talking high toast. You're not talking, really intense sort of oaky flavors. It's really more about the mouthfeel. It's about the texture. It's about kind of like bringing the wine together, making it more like homogenous in the glass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like a almost like a resting period after the sort of the energetic, sort of, oh my god, we're turning into something brand new here. Sit it in a big old barrel and let it just chill out. It's a fascinating wine. I want to say I am a fan of it as well. That texture is wonderful because it gives it a sort of almost like a when you describe something as having weight, as in it has like a sort of an import.
Yeah,
it has like
definitely weight.
It's got something about it which seems sort of statesman-like, stateswoman-like. It's got like a sort of a confidence that comes from that sort of that weight that just sits in the mouth heavily, as opposed to being that sort of slightly sort of a frivolous frippery of like a wine that's like, which is great. We all love a Vino Verde. We all love, there's no doubt about that. But I find that often with Central European wines, like a sort of like a Gruner, that's maybe that's got a bit more texture to it. That it just kind of makes it feel a little,
just adds something extra.
Yeah,
to it,
yeah.
Gives
like
it a bit of presence.
Something like a bit more serious.
Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit about the exactities and the winemaking. So, as we've said, this is 100% Semillon now. Amazing. Thank you. 100% Semillon. And something that I'm going to mention as we go through the tasting as well is how these wines have changed since I last tasted them. So, they have evolved. Like I said, it's a young winemaker, but he's still very sort of like knowledgeable. He's really sort of continuously experimenting and continuously sort of like changing that alphabet of wine. So, I think actually all of these, bar the Icona, used to be something different in a previous sort of formation.
I definitely remember that the Mistress used to have more Iberian grapes in it.
Yeah, Touriga Nacional, Carignan.
The Dolcetto I only ever knew as a Dolcetto, but I'm sure you'll tell me something different. The Sangiovese also had
cab,
a little bit of cab in there as well. So now
the wines are evolving constantly.
By putting a Riesling in there, obviously that's sort of mimicking the Semillon Sauvignon blend that you would get classically in a white Bordeaux. And Riesling is a natural sort of, because it's an aromatic varietal with peaked acidity, it's going to work to kind of counterbalance that Semillon, but they obviously have a lot more Riesling in this area than they do Sauvignon, if my understanding is correct. So why did they choose to change it up?
Blend. I mean, it could just be that the Semillon is kind of singing so well that they want to give it its own sort of center stage. It could be that they've found more growers of Semillon that they really enjoy working with, because these guys do not own any of their own vineyards. This vineyard that they work with, it's actually from 2 different plots. Oh, try the cheese with it. Amazing.
So for the guys that went for the cheese at home, we've got the Duras, Berkswell, Murcia Alvino, and Baron Bigod on this tasting. The Duras is an absolute fucking treat. It's quite old Duras.
Nice.
So it's right, and the nuttiness of that really syncs well with that, and it highlights why this wine has the role that it does, that it isn't just a regular Semillon, because it is textured and because it is complex, that it stands up to food in a slightly different way. It doesn't just like,
all these wines are foodie wines,
but it doesn't just accent the food. It has its own role to play within that partnership. It's really absolutely delicious.
So a wine that's got a little bit like savory sort of character to it is just like absolute winner with food, because like complements like, more is more sometimes. And those, like I said, if it's an older Duras, it might be a little bit more sort of earthy and nutty and spicy. That will kind of really accentuate each other, and it's going to mingle really well. But yeah, what was I saying? I can't remember. Oh yeah, vineyards.
Sorry,
So,
I keep talking over you,
right.
as I've done for the entire time that we've known each other.
So it's from I correct myself from earlier. So it is a single vineyard, this little guy. So 100% Semillon, and from an area called Hope Forest. So it's about 40 kilometers south of Adelaide. And these guys, like you said, they're working with growers all around in like a little bit of a network, all within South Australia. But they make all of their wine in McLaren Vale. That's where their cellar door is. That's where their cellar is. That's where the kind of hub of activity is. But they do work with a network of growers. So this single vineyard planted in the late 90s. So it could be that because they don't own the vineyard, maybe when they first started working with them, they only had control of a small amount of it. And then when they showed what they could do with it and how well it was performing, they managed to actually work, more with the grower and actually kind of maybe have entire control of the vineyard. I don't know. That's what I mean. You've got to establish these relationships with the growers over a long period of time. They're not just going to give you everything straight away.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Holding back on this one,
I guess if they've given it to you, they've sold the wine, they've made their money, right? In a way. So like, yeah, do whatever the fuck you want with it. But if you do something amazing with it, then they go, okay. Come and be involved in the actual grape growing process. Now that's really interesting. So what have you gleaned from all your vineyard trips recently? I'm sorry to drag you off topic again, but all your vineyard trips recently is Lauren, obviously, when it comes to both sides of the vine, Lauren is the mud under the fingernails, forklift certified, and you're much more the kind of finesse fine dining. You're the indoor cat, she's the outdoor cat. Okay, fine. But by going to all of these wineries, it does open your eyes in a way that really it's impossible to replicate, even on these tastings with screen show and all the rest of it. Actually being there is different. So what that element of having to be in control of every aspect of growing the grape is as important as anything else. What's your takeaway been recently?
I think for me, like the takeaway is actually just the scale and also how exposed their livelihood actually is. All of the vineyards are just exposed to the elements 24/7, especially in Europe anyway. It's not like Australia and South Africa where you can like net the vines and things like that. They're just exposed to elements, and it's just it's kind of like there's not that much you can actually do about it, especially like I said in older world countries, so like Spain, Italy, France, Portugal. There's not actually too much you can do unless you get the approvals from the right authorities, and sometimes your hands are literally tied. And I can't imagine watching a thunderstorm roll in and thinking, oh God, we shouldn't have irrigated, when you'd really, begged to irrigate, and then you're like, no, it's chance. And I know we say it 1,000 times, like it's a mixture between art and luck and science. It genuinely is. And I think that's what surprised me, is just how down to chance it is, and when you're talking to these producers, when you're talking to the winemakers, you're not just talking to the export managers, you're not just talking to the salespeople, like it was like you're actually talking to the people who are doing it day in, day out. And it's really, really interesting to just hear how, I'll talk about it with the mistress as well, but to hear how they just have to, during harvest, they just have to bench everything. See ya, and you're not going to see me for however many weeks it takes. There's so much labor that goes into it, and just hearing about the amount of labor, the pure scale of it, and how risky it is. That's what blows my mind. And when you look at a plot of vines, they go, there's 0.3 hectares, that'll do X amount of thousands of bottles. And I'm like, what? How do you know? I can't think in thousands of bottles. I think in a bottle. For you? Do you know what I mean?
I've got one bottle to sell, and I've got another 3 on the shelf for the next service.
And one for me to take home.
Yeah.
Sorted. That's 4 or 5. I've run out of fingers. So, but for them
they're thinking, well, that bit there is going to go to South Asian market. That bit there is going to go to Northern Europe. That bit there is going to go to Western Europe. That's going to go to the US. That's going to go to the Far East. Right. We're not going to produce enough here because this is this tiny single vineyard plot of Brunello di Montalcino. What the fuck are we going to do?
Yeah. And it's different markets have different tastes as well. So we're all obviously, drinking wine in the UK market, but actually if you travel, abroad, you've got different exports for different countries. So it might be the similar sort of wine, but made slightly differently for a slightly different market's taste.
It's one of those things as well, where it's a little bit like, okay, well, I've got a house in this area and I want to build a new kitchen and do an extension and do this and that because it'll add £300,000 to my house. Like, no. Even if you've got a 6-bedroom house, you're not going to sell for X hundreds of thousands of pounds more than what other houses in the area are going to go for. So if you have a harvest which is absolutely decimated because you have hail right at the worst moment, you're not going to be able to, well, we'll just charge 3 times more per bottle because it's scarcity. No, shit doesn't work like that. That just means that you're going to make significantly less revenue because you've got less wine to sell.
Yeah, and it's just in trends as well. So trends are so fleeting, and it's just there's just so much to think about with it. And it's just the pure immensity and the scale of it, which I've really kind of put things into perspective, if you know what I mean.
When you drive through wine country, there is a kind of a glorious lulling effect of just being vineyard after vineyard after vineyard. You turn the corner, vineyard, olive trees, turn that corner, vineyard. It just goes on forever and ever and ever. Oh my God, it's amazing. But actually, it can come down to this tiny little corner of a vineyard that makes this incredible single vineyard expression of whatever. And that gets fucked over, then it doesn't matter what else is out there. And it seems like,
replicate it. If that bit of your, if that plot, that single vineyard that's got decimated and one like half a mile away didn't, then there's nothing that you can do to bring it back. It's just lost. And even just aging vines as well. So something that I didn't realize, not all vines should age, if that makes sense. So I'm saying this is this plot of Semillon was planted in the late 90s. It's an old established vine, all that sort of stuff. Some of that isn't actually the case. So, Sauvignon Blanc, maybe, for example, shouldn't really be an old vine. And if it should, maybe it's not performing the best because Sauvignon Blanc is planted to be more commercial. And it's like all these things where I'm thinking old vines are always better, more concentration, more flavor, less, you don't always want that from some varieties. And it's just, reframing and rethinking and just kind of zooming out, if that makes sense. Spend so much of our time zooming in that you forget what the bigger picture looks like. I
think in order to be able to zoom out, you must have been able to zoom in on other things, so you can then
appreciate
and also so you can drag the bit of knowledge that you have about this one thing, you can drag it out and apply it to something else. And therefore give you an idea of the patchwork of what happens at the sort of macro level. If you don't know anything about granularity, then you can't analyze anything from sort of satellite level. And if you can't see anything from satellite level, what happens at the ground floor means absolutely nothing because you don't actually know about the whole rest of it. Anyway, back to this wine that we're trying here. Also, Count Dave, lovely on the nose, honeydew melon, exotic fruit, maybe passion fruit, and more dry and spicy than the nose to taste, and get the weight and just love it. Really, really nice.
Yeah, actually, I don't pick up that much of that spice on the palate. You get a little bit of warmth, but it's really kind of the texture which does a lot of the heavy lifting. And a big part of why you might not feel as much of that, like that spice, that sort of, that maybe a little bit of harshness that you might be expecting on the palate, is because it's had full MLF. So
I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned that, exactly that point, because now this has warmed up ever so slightly.
You get a bit more creaminess,
a little bit more whipped creme anglaise sort of vibe.
So coats your palate a little bit more. That lactic acid, like I said, same acid that's in cheese.
So we use that. We've been using that analogy an awful lot, and it seemed to have done an awful lot. But I think it was Higgins actually in the shop. It was said that MLF is like, well, initially it's tea, and then it's tea that you've added milk to.
Yes. Oh, nice. That's cool.
That seemed to make a lot of sense. So
it's relatable, isn't it? Yeah, that's definitely relatable. Yeah, you're right.
Is it accurate though, or can I go into work tomorrow and take the piss out of them?
I mean, you're not adding anything. It's changing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like milk has spontaneously appeared in the cup.
Yes. Yeah. Imagine you just really want milk in your tea, and all of a sudden it's there. Woo!
Manifest.
Yeah. Manifest that milk in your brew. Yeah, because it's chemically changing. So it's, as we know, it's not actually a fermentation. It's something slightly different. But
this wine is absolutely fascinating. This wine has changed about 11 times every time I go back to it. We say it constantly, go back to it again and again and again. You'll get different things second time, third time, fourth time. But it seems to me to be actively shape-shifting into something different as it warms up, as my palate reacts to it, as the cheese has done its job of being this sort of slightly earthy, footy kind of vibe.
In a good way.
Come back, in the best way. And for some people, it's the only way. Yes. And you know what? We're not here to kink shame. What gets you there, gets you there. We're never going to yuck anybody's yum here at Grapes Grain Live.
That's funny.
But it seems to be evolving and changing, which is
that's a sign of a good wine.
Yeah, but
I was chatting to someone. We were in Rueda the other day, and we were chatting to the
so incredibly well flavored.
And he said it's a natural winery as well. So they're not a natural winery, but they are low intervention, but they still make clean wines. Not natural wine doesn't have to be dirty, is what he said. He said, I've got long hair, but I take a fucking shower. You know what I mean? That's what he said. And I was like, you know what? About right. So yeah, it's something about, he says like a wine, it has to be 3 wines. One a sign of a good wine is that it's 3 wines. One when you pour it in the glass initially as it's cold and it's just come out of the bottle, and then so that's your first taste. Second one is kind of when you go back to it, you revisit it, it's not something new anymore. And the third one is when you've forgotten about it and you go back to it, and you think, oh, whoa, that's changed. He said a good wine is always 3 wines. And I really loved that.
Love that.
I was like, that makes so much sense, because like you said, it's constantly changing and it's giving you something different. It's a sign of a great wine. It's not one dimensional, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because your palate changes throughout the course of the experience. If it was just uniform cookie cutter every single time you went to it, that can be comforting. That can be reliable. There's a place for that kind of thing. But even from an academic exercise of how multifaceted, interesting, and ever-changing a wine can be, that also plays an important role as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I said, very layered wine, really complex. There's a lot of wine making.
A bit of honey just come out of it as well.
Yeah, I gotta say,
do you think? Because I'm stomping all over it currently.
So like I said, we are lower intervention. We're kind of letting Mother Nature do its thing. So all harvested from one single vineyard planted in the late 90s, harvested in the early morning as well. So you're maintaining as many of those sort of like finer floral aromatics that we're still picking up in the wine, which is really cool. You don't want to be harvesting in the sort of like beating heat of the day, because your fruit's just going to bake and blister and just be like it by the time it gets to your winery. It's popped into wild fermenters. So popped into, open top fermenters and then left to spontaneously ferment, and takes about 10 days, in which point the skins are left in there as well. Then it's after that sort of initial wild fermentation has happened, it's got the desired sort of like color level, it's looking all right. It's then pressed and racked into large barrels, large barriques, like Tom said before, and it sits there for 12 months. Has spontaneous malolactic fermentation that's going on from the sort of bacteria that's actually still present in the wine, good bacteria like in Yakult. Don't know whether it's the same ones, but it's good bacteria. I realized when I said it, I was like, it's
if you want to know whether or not
gut health is really important,
whether or not corporate advertising campaigns work, it's called back brain. Back of brain. You now know that when you hear good bacteria, you think Yakult. Of Yakult.
Yeah.
Oh God, they're in our minds.
So yeah, and then that's basically the last step. So they wait for it to go through that full malolactic fermentation, and then kind of just ready to go, you know. So a little bit of barrel, a little bit of wild ferment, nothing added, nothing taken away. It's basically just, you know, wine as kind of Mother Nature intended it to be.
It's fantastic. I'm not sold on orange wine as a wider category, but the last 2 orange wines that I've tried have been outstanding. We had a guy called it's called Nico in Preston. He sent this Serbian orange. It's called Marmalade orange wine. It was Chardonnay, and it was genuinely outstanding. The thing was that a couple of days, the next day, having vacuumed it, kept it in the fridge, I went back to show it to some other customers that we had in, tried that, and I had a little bit of again, and it felt like it had fallen away really quite steeply compared to when I first opened the bottle, and it was like, it's bright, it's fresh, it's got texture and weight. There was a really interesting, delicate influence of quite a large amount of wood and lees aging. It was everything that I wanted it to be, plus also with an added dynamic of that skin contact on the white wine, but then it fell away quite quickly. So that's something where it's not necessarily using the same preservatives like sulfites in the wines. Is that something that these guys have avoided deliberately in order to satisfy that category? Or
I don't know them as a no added sulfite winery. So, you know, bearing in mind it's coming from a long way away as well. So you might just need sort of that like bare minimum just to stabilize it in terms of transport. Because, you know, these are serious wines, you know, they're not the cheapest wines on the shelf either. So you do still want the product to be kind of stable. And
they are, however, made radically cheaper by using Alpha Box 15 at checkout, where you get 15% off. Grapesgrain.co.uk. Get that shit.
So yeah, you do need a little bit of that addition of sulfites, I think.
So sulfites aren't necessarily something to be scared of, but some people do have genuine allergic reactions to sulfites. So it's not a made up thing.
No,
but it's not necessarily something to be really scared of. What is it? What do they do?
It's a preservative. They're in all sorts. They're in, say, like if you have 3 dried apricots. That's probably as much sulfite that's in a bottle of wine.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I love dried apricots. They taste like gummy bears.
Yeah, one of Dom's biggest legacies in the Prestwich shop was the addition of dried apricots to all of the boards. It's now a must do. Well done, Dom Papalia.
Love dried apricots, but yeah, he
did more than just fucking do dried apricots. That was a bit reductive. Like, in the year and a half he was there, at least he brought dried apricots into the building. No, he did an awful lot more.
So yeah, they're active. It's a preservative. They're in a lot of like dried fruits and nuts and things like that. So don't be scared of them. They're around. It's a natural byproduct of fermentation and makes your wine taste better for longer.
There we go. All right, there we go. Fantastic. A great start to the tasting. The Alpbox Dice Golden Delicioso with an amount of sulfites in it. An as yet undisclosed amount.
Well, yeah.
Maybe. We'll see.
There's your breath. What we on next?
Right, okay. Wine number two. Wine number two. So we've done this in the order that feel is most
makes sense.
Oh, yeah, but apart from the fact that I've laid these out incorrectly.
Is this definitely Dead Winemaker?
Yes, that is correct. But so, this is the order that we're doing it. So Dead Winemaker Society number 2 is a Dolcetto, classically found in Piedmont in northwestern Italy. You might have heard of Dolcetto d'Alba, in the same region where you'll find Barolo.
Yeah.
Dolcetto is a very, very different grape to the Nebbiolo that takes its name from the clouds rolling in up the Piemontese mountains, but it still has peaked acidity, which can make for a really bright and fresh wine, and wine sometimes that can actually lend itself to chilling. We haven't done so in this stage, but we're not growing this wine in the foothills of the Alps. This isn't being made in Piedmont in northwestern Italy. This is made in Adelaide Hills again. So let's have a little go at the Dead Winemaker Society. Where's the name come from?
So Dead Winemaker Society, it's a bit of a sort of
wow.
It's very expressive.
Wow.
It smells purple. I think I'm going to say that.
It smells like sweeties. Yeah. So Dead Winemaker Society is a homage to
the ones that came before, basically. Yeah. So, they're saying that, the people who planted these grapes are the generations that came before them. Granted, not as long a history as, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, whatever, but it's really kind of a what's it called? A tip of the cap to
the cap.
Yeah, that's the one. As you know, I'm not good at sayings, so don't know why I tried.
Not good with them sayings.
Sayings.
I guess it's a nod to Dead Poets Society, film with Robin Williams in it, which of course was not mocking of dead poets. If anything, it was lauding the talents that the dead poets.
Winemakers are the poets of nature. They're taking the fruit and they're making poetry, which is in a bottle of wine. It's airy fairy, but the label is quite Halloweeny, which I quite like. And then on their notes, I remember before I was reading it, it said best served at tomb temperature.
Did I put it on the menu?
Did you?
Yes.
It's great. Yeah.
The deliciously Moorish Italianette varietal from Apple, best served at.
I was like, seriously?
Tomb temperature.
I was thinking I'm not going to mention that, and I just have done, but Anyway.
Well, let's have a little go. Now, there's a bit of a haze to this.
Yeah.
It's not completely bright and clear, but the wine has got this really beautiful gentle hue.
Yeah.
It's, when you guys pour wine number 5 and even wine number 4, which is peculiar because it's a Sangiovese, but both of those ones, they are deep.
Yeah.
Deep wines. But this one has just a real elegant kind of
medium
subtle
intensity. Much more sort of like surprisingly ruby, I would say, considering this is from, is it 2019 that you guys have got? Yeah, 2019. So it's got 4 years of aging on there. Well, 3 years of aging on there, because it's the time of harvest. But it's still surprisingly bright. And as you can tell on the nose as well, it's got that energy. It really kind of like jumps out of the glass as well. Nice and, like I said, floral, fruity. I get a few sort of like violets, like red cherry as well.
So then giving way to a little bit more of a kind of earthy, forest flory.
Bit of earthiness, bit of spiciness, but very, very pronounced on the nose.
Herb, but the fruit is jubilant. The fruit is like a sort of Jolly Rancher meets sort of a handful of blackberries.
Yeah, lovely. I'll dive in.
Just realised that these are Villeroy and Bosch, also known as Villeroy and Posh.
I was like,
I've no idea why.
I don't know.
Such expensive glasses, but
Is it? I was thinking that as I was like, I was like,
I've broken, my cleaners have broken 4 of them and I've broken 3 of them.
perfect.
Yeah.
How many did you have? 32.
Yeah. Well, that kept on getting re-ups from the shop. Every time I broke some, I'll bring some back to use on the tastings again. Yeah, because I don't have them in carry cases like we did back in the day.
That's nice. That has a little bit more. It's different on the palate than it is on the nose. It's a little bit more serious on the palate.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Much more developed in terms of those tertiary, sort of secondary, tertiary flavors coming through from the aging. Much more earthy, much more savory. Really silky tannins though.
It gives way to a kind of like sort of a cranberry, but like you might find, you know, if you go to like a pub at Christmas and you get like a cranberry sauce infused gravy, you know, like that kind of like, and it's right at the back of the throat after you've swallowed it, and it's sort of a long, lingering, sort of meaty, berry kind of vibe.
That's really nice. And it does have a bit of that, like that meatiness. Yeah, meatiness, earthiness, definitely savory, nice and spicy. But
the acidity is high, which is what you would expect from a dolcetto, which gives it this incredible silkiness, juiciness. It makes it feel and taste vibrant, perhaps more vibrant than the fruitiness of the wine might expect. But this is also grown in the hot heat of South Australia.
It's definitely going to be different than, you know, like you said, a Piemontese dolcetto. Like it's not ever going to be the same thing. You know, that you can say they're cut from the same cloth, but then that cloth was transported over continents and oceans. So, you know, it's very, very different. You know, like I said, they're taking these Mediterranean varieties and then putting their own spin on it too. So, I mean, there can't be a lot of dolcetto planted in.
What do you think in terms of percentage? Less than 1%?
I should have looked that up. I was thinking then, I was like,
well, let's do it.
How much dolcetto can possibly be planted in Australia? Because I don't know of another one. I don't even know if it's present in any sort of like blends or anything like that. But yeah, as Tom said, we're in Adelaide Hills. And this is from 2 vineyards, so Christmas Hill and Jacob Paddock, and both of them have lovely sort of like dense clay soils as well.
So according to AustralianWine.com, 101 total hectares of planting.
And that's tiny.
Across the whole of Australia.
Think about how much like viticulture land is planted with vines in Australia. 101 hectares is nothing.
No, I mean, like there will be there will be some
300 hectares.
Yeah, I was going to say, there will be some ranches where a single vineyard, in some ranches in California where a single vineyard is 100+ hectares. The first plantings in Australia were in the 1860s, so it has been around for a while. Dark purple skin grape that's been growing in Australia for over a century. The dark purple skinness does come out, but obviously I'm guessing that because it's so light, it hasn't had a huge amount of extraction. So talk us through the winemaking.
So in terms of the winemaking, hand-picked in the morning, again, similar to the same as the Semillon. So we're actually going for that lighter, brighter sort of style of dolcetto. De-stemmed, so you're getting rid. This is still savory to me though, but they are getting rid of the stems and the stalks. Anything that can add extra bitterness to it. That's probably why they've done it actually, because it's still so silky. If you wanted to make like a really crunchy, intense, like grippy dolcetto, leave those stems and stalks in, you know, but they've taken them out.
What's the classic kind of like
tasting
standard operating procedure in Piedmont? Is it whole bunch ferment? Is it stalky stems?
It's definitely. I don't think it's.
I feel like unless you're in certain sections of France, they
a whole bunch. Like certain varieties are better to whole bunch than others as well. So because it has got like quite thick skins, I don't believe that it's suitable for whole bunch or like carbonic maceration or anything like that. But yeah, lighter, like, you know, like different varieties. It's not something that I know too much about, but like I said, that's quite techie winemaking stuff. But yeah, certain varieties are suited to different sort of fermentation techniques. So sometimes it actually isn't a choice. They're not going, oh, I'm going to de-stem today, and maybe next year I'll keep the stems in. Some varieties are better suited to different. You've got to treat different grape varieties different, and even the same grape variety grown in 2 different climates, you've got to treat them totally differently. Like Rioja, you can't treat, you know, Tempranillo grown in Rioja the same as Tempranillo grown in Australia, the same as Tempranillo grown in Ribera del Duero. So they're very, very different. They're different beasts. You've got to treat them differently because they're all going to be different products at the end of the day. But yeah,
that's the beauty of the Alpha Box and Dice project, though, isn't it? Is taking these varietals that have long storied histories in the old world, and then doing whatever the fuck they want to them because they absolutely can. Stewed fruit, blackberry, and plum notes for us to taste.
I like plum as well. Yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, this is destemmed again, same as the Semillon, into open top fermenters and left to naturally ferment until dry. So it's basically until it stops bubbling, in essence, until it stops that sort of in Rioja as well. Got to hear, so they'd literally just harvested. We were standing on top of these massive, like, newly built concrete tanks. The winemaker, opened the little hub cap on top almost, and you could hear the bloop, 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 and I was mesmerized. These tanks were like 10 foot tall as well, so those bubbles are doing some distance, and it just reinforces how much of like a tumultuous process the fermentation.
Very different experience to putting your head into a mash tun at a whiskey distillery where it feels like you're getting
pummeled,
assaulted.
Oh yeah.
But if it's mid ferment in the mash tun, which is where they ferment the mash, so all the grains. The classic, if you've never been into a whiskey distillery before, with a newbie, the first thing you do, the trick to catch them is a little bit like, does this mint smell funny to you? Bang, and you hit them in the face with it. Like, smell that mash tun. They go like that. No, get your head right in there. They put their head right in there.
Yeah.
People have died, I'm sure, off the whack that they get in the face. But it's a slightly different experience at a winery, I guess.
It's a little bit. It's definitely not more delicate, but it's just a bit more like, I think it depends where you are and who you're with.
It's a little bit more heady and a little bit less.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not often that when you visit wineries, usually you go out of season, don't you? So when everything's aging and everything's quiet, but you know, when we went, it was literally directly after harvest and things were still going on, and it was absolutely crazy. But yeah, anyway, enough about that. So yeah, into open top fermenters, and then it's naturally fermented on the skins until dry. I think I said that. To extract a little bit of tannin, a little bit more flavor, they gently sort of like hand plunge it, so they'll give it a little bit of sort of rotation, a little bit of just to enhance that sort of like maceration a little bit more. And then the wine is taken out of those fermenters and popped into steel. So you really get that freshness here as well, and it ages in steel for 18 months. So, you know, this is, like we said, we're working on 2019 vintage, so there's had substantial amount of aging that's gone into the sort of like production process. It's removed then after 18 months from the steel and popped to age for 6 months in bottle before release as well.
I always find that that's a good indicator of a winemaker
where it sits in bottle.
Where if it's leave it to sit in the bottle, even if it's just for a few months before you release it to the general public. It's, for me, this might just be sort of a layman's interpretation of it. It always seems to suggest a winemaker whose main desire is to ensure that your experience with that wine is optimum. Like, it needs some time. We're going to incur the cost, because you're not going to get a massive uptick in terms of the price of the wine if it sits there for 6 months, 3 months, as opposed to maybe if it sits there for 5 years, there might be something going on there. But it's not about making the wine more expensive. It's about when it arrives to you, it's going to be the way that it should be, the way that they've envisaged it, the way that they've dreamt it to be.
And when a wine is just bottled as well, you can tell. Like, so when, like, we had some samples that were bottled especially for us to taste, you know, like the new vintage, like 2023, whatever, and you could tell it had just been bottled. You can tell it was like a wine that has just been made. It was full of like so much energy, but not necessarily good energy, in a way that there was just so much going on, and it was like bouncing around. It was like electric on your palate almost, and it needs that time.
The fully
you can just tell there's something around, and you're like, whoa, hello, there's something
the wrong end of the polar spectrum.
Yeah,
you know, we're in the wine's in its manic phase. It's not.
Yeah, she's not found like a true style yet, you know, still kind of like trying on hats or whatever. Whatever people do. But that's not a saying, but it can be.
It is a saying now.
Trying on hats. But yeah, it's really, really cool to see that bottle evolution. Yeah.
But that, like, to deliberately take that choice, it seems to me like
it's a choice, yeah.
The winemakers have your best interest at heart when they do that.
100%.
So,
verdict?
Nice.
Nice.
Big fan.
Big fan. Would drink again.
Bright, energetic, but with a sort of a depth and a And like I said, it's much more serious on the palate than perhaps it is on the nose, where it's got that sort of slightly candied confectionery. Not, which isn't to say artificial, but it's got a kind of confectionery.
It reminds me of Grenache on the nose, actually. Like, you know, like that. Don't know, just that like bright cherry sort of thing, like strawberry laces, like confectionery. I was like, oh my god, it's like a young Grenache, you know, like Aussie, like lighter Grenache that you
but it's not that young, actually.
No, it isn't. And then when you taste it, you feel the age and you feel the complexity, and yeah, it definitely didn't do what I expected it to do, which was nice.
Yeah, for sure. Good. Absolutely. And again, it's another wine within their portfolio that sits being able to do something different to the other ones as well. Because we're now going to move on to wine number 3, which is a very young expression, 2022 vintage of Mistress.
This is the first time I've tasted this one, you know, in its new reincarnation.
This will be the first time for me ever. So there we go. Wow. Very, very tres exciting. But young Tempranillo, I find as a grape can be quite brutal.
Depends.
That it needs to be almost hammered into a useful shape by time.
Yeah.
So I'll be interesting to see how this is reacting. However, I've also had a glorious Joven that year's vintage in Rioja.
Totally different style to anything else. I agree. I didn't used to find Tempranillo so exciting, but it is so exciting and it is so versatile. I think.
Look how much production went into it.
Wow. It was a Jesus wine. Spontaneous production wine. Wine. There's a transporting code in this. It just showed up, you know what I mean? It was great.
You just thought about wine and it was there.
Yeah, it's here.
So where does the name Mistress come from? Because they do have hilarious names.
Yeah, so Mistress, I used to think it was something from a song, but it's not. It's actually because it's an ode to vineyard. It's an ode to the harvest. So when you are
Mother Earth, Gaia.
Yeah, I don't know. Something like that. It's actually a bit more tongue in cheek than that. It's so when the winemakers and the vineyard workers, when the grapes are ready, you've got to go. You know, was chatting to another winemaker the other day, and one of his sort of production staff was joking. He's like, Felipe, why do you always say harvest on a Saturday? Could it not be the Monday? Could it not wait? And he's like, no, when the grapes are ready, the grapes are ready. You know what I mean? Yeah. We've got to go. So it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing to say, like, during harvest time, the wine becomes your mistress. You've got to forget about your family back home.
Okay.
And you've got to, you know, be where the party's at.
Because actually the mistress actually has you by the balls, and the minute that you stop looking after the mistress is the minute
everything falls apart.
Your real life goes to rat shit, and you end up sleeping in your car.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. She's a hard task mistress.
I didn't know it was such like a sultry sort of story. And another one as well, they said
sexy.
Yeah, so they're like, you come home covered in purple grape kisses. You know, from when you work in harvest, you're covered in grape juice left, right, and center. When you're tasting it, you're trying it, you're tasting the juice, you're tasting the tank samples, crushing the berries, you're tasting this, you're tasting that. You're just purple. You are purple, especially when you're working with Tempranillo, when you're working with Cabernet, when you're working with Dolcetto, just have thick skins but not very like intense juice. But yeah, you're covered in it, and you're coming home and you can tell where you've been, you know. So it's my perception is wine is like changed.
It's quite
I'm blushing.
Actually, it's you're coming back covered with bloody sex juice.
Yeah, basically that's what it's saying.
It's pretty intense when you phrase it like that, isn't it? Fuck me. Right, okay.
Don't shoot the messenger.
The mistress. It says on the back of the bottle, late again with a guilty look and the smell of sweet fruit lingering all around you, whose purple kisses are smeared all over you. Like fucking hell.
I'm getting blush.
Fucking hell, Jen. Okay. like a Victorian lady. Like, oh, Mr. Beauregard, you are too bold. Right, so let's have a little look at it, shall we? I mean, again,
sexy. No, I'm kidding.
It was actually a little bit more muted on the nose. I thought I got a waft of something quite heavy. It's got a rubiness, but it does give way to a sort of bricky garnety color around the edge, which is interesting because this was harvested at the start of last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does have a little bit more of that halo than you think. But yeah, the actual sort of like body of the wine is pretty deep, isn't it?
We're at a paltry 13% ABV.
No, I'm kidding. So yeah, 100% Tempranillo, and as we mentioned before, It used to be a blend of, I wrote it down, Touriga Nacional, Tempranillo, and Carignan. So Tempranillo didn't even used to be the main grape variety in this. Again, I don't know the reason for why it changed. It could just be that, like I said, the relationship with the grower got better. They really wanted to showcase Tempranillo, or it could be, you know, Sam's influence and really.
Could it be something as prosaic and sort of unromantic as they just had access to a lot of good Tempranillo and they decided to just.
100%. It's changeable.
It doesn't have to be this hyper romantic story where they were sat pondering the berries in their hand and they just decided what to do. No, and they crushed it like that, like no, and the juice ran down their forearms and they were like, no, I don't want these grapes. This Graciano must live. I only wish to work with Tempranillo now. It doesn't have to be this kind of like romantic Bollywood kind of like story. It could just be we had a load of really good fucking temp. We didn't need to pad out, and I guess we had loads of really good temp, and maybe the Carignan didn't come in that well that year.
Or maybe those vineyards have been ripped up. You never know. Yeah. You know, it could be that the growers have taken the opportunity to change direction. And at the end of the day, these guys don't own those vineyards. It could be something as unromantic as, well, they've actually torn those vineyards up and they've decided to redevelop, you know, for future generations, sort of different, you know, different vines, different wines and things like that. Or it could be that they've not torn.
They wanted a fucking pool, so they dug up all those vineyards and stuck a pool in.
Could be a block of flats there. I don't know. Probably not.
Unlikely in the middle of the Adelaide Hills, but
it's called urban living. No, I don't know what it's called.
So it's got a lovely deep color, a color that I don't want to say isn't necessarily found in Tempranillos from its kind of its original home in Rioja and Ribera del Duero, but maybe because it's still youthful, it still has that sort of intensity of youth. The legs are quite quick when they get going, and they're fairly thick. At 13% ABV, you're guessing that's not going to be necessarily hugely booze caused.
I think there's got to be a little bit of fruit in here, not necessarily sugar, not necessarily sweetness, but definitely a little bit of ripeness just because of where it hails from.
It's got some really nice dried fruit, dried herb vibes to it.
Yeah, a little bit sort of like bruised strawberry as well, not fresh strawberry. Like,
ooh, that's a very specific flavor notes, which is
the one strawberry you eat at the bottom and you're like,
where you pick it up and on top it looks fine, and then underneath it looks like
everybody knows what that is, you know. You've been busy. Nice. I put that back in the punnet for somebody else. No.
That's the one that you date and you're 1.5 dates in, you go like, you're going back in the punnet. You are bruised and damaged on the underside. That isn't immediately obvious to everybody else. I'm going to let somebody else discover this shit. So it's saying here cherries and darker fruits on the palate. It's also saying juicy acidity and light dusty tannins that are ripe and soft. So I'm excited to get into it. Shall we? Paused.
That was you packed some force behind that one.
We're good at this. This is not our first. This is our second or maybe even third rodeo. You know what? That's softer than I expected it to be.
Fire, yeah. I was expecting
something a bit fucking rowdy, a bit temp. All right, actually, on the finish, I don't know. The tannins are velvety. But I just have this feeling. I don't know if it's.
This is totally.
I just have a feeling about, and maybe it's are the growing conditions slightly easier here than they would be maybe at altitude in Rioja or in the sort of slightly desertified, arid Ribera del Duero.
Probably not as an extreme climate.
Yeah, maybe that's why those temps have sort of implanted in my head that they're a bit fucking bitey. No, they're a bit like. And they need to be corralled in a barrel for a fucking long time. Otherwise, they're too abrasive.
Because you're drinking 1,000-meter altitude Ribera del Duero, you know. Yeah, it's a completely different beast. You know, this will be, like I said, the fruit themselves. It might not be that much sort of like riper than Ribera del Duero because it has like a lot of extremes of temperature. You know, it'd be like up to 40 degrees plus in the summer, but then in that same day in the summer it'll go down to like 12 degrees at night. So those grapes, it might be like really extreme, but it'll get a nice rest at night. But you know, here you might not have as much of a sort of a diurnal shift, so it might stay a little bit warmer, you know. But yeah, it's definitely not as extreme in terms of temperatures as you get like on a plateau on the Meseta in Spain. You know, it's totally different.
So it's not a sort of rambunctious of a wine. It's a little bit more together. It's a little bit more, you know what? Totally. It's like the Mistress.
Yeah.
You know, she's tempestuous, but it's all enclosed in velvet or in I don't know, chinois or something.
Yeah, it's completely different to how it used to be as well. So last time I had the Mistress, it was probably about 2 years ago, actually. And it was a lot more of that violety sort of blueberry, bramble, blackberry. It was a lot more violety.
I just got some florality, but that might be not nominative determinism. It might just be a little bit like
you've been looking for a bit more.
You've implanted it in my head, and this minute you said violet, but actually it was
not red. This isn't purple to me. This is red all day long, like red and rusty and. Yeah, like I said, much more on that sort of like that red fruit sort of. I don't know. You can't taste or smell rusty, but I'm feeling rust for some reason. I don't know.
So I had a little bit of the Berkswell with that, but actually we've got the Murcia Alvino here, which is a Spanish cheese that is soaked in grape must. It's got a little bit more plumpness to it, so that might actually work quite neatly with this. I won't talk whilst you're eating the cheese though.
Okay. Why don't we both eat cheese at the same time? Why don't we all eat cheese?
That's some damn good telly right there. Oh yeah.
Nice.
If you're at home and you didn't go for the cheese board, well, let that be a fucking lesson to you then.
We did. No, I'm kidding. Oh, that's the thing. We're both going to drink wine at the same time now.
I'd be interested to know.
Makes the wine tangier. It lifts it.
I'd be really interested to know how, because this is the youngest wine here.
It tastes so developed though. Like so.
I'm interested to see how that wine will change.
Dolcetto tasted younger than its years. This tastes older than its years. What have they done? What happened?
What's going on?
What's going on? You know, it's definitely not. I couldn't even I'm not even going to try and liken this to, you know, a Joven, a Crianza Reserva, or a Grand Reserva. It doesn't resonate with any of those Rioja categories. It's something, you know, of itself. It's something entirely different. Really, really bright, really bouncy, and yeah, but it has got a little bit of spice to it and a little bit of that sort of like savory cherry sort of thing going on to it as well. Yeah. Really cool.
That's not relevant at all. I'd put it there as if I was showing you something, but actually, I was like,
okay.
We just had somebody drop out the Zoom, but they're actually watching us on YouTube.
Okay, perfect.
So, Cat Dave, almond, slightly floral, cranberry, and tannic. So lots going on there. That almond,
like the cranberry thing as well. Yeah.
What's gone into the vinification? Because obviously it's telling me absolutely nothing on their website.
So vinification. So this is from a single vineyard. So in its previous iteration, it used to be 3 single vineyards which were blended together. In this case, now it is just that one single vineyard, 100% Tempranillo, and it's partially destemmed, so it does have a little bit of the stem left in there as well. Maybe that's why we're getting that savory sort of character as well, a little bit of crunchiness. And then it's matured for 9 months in, again, seasoned sort of old Burgundy barrels, barriques, sorry, so larger format barrels. After those 9 months in barrel, it's then taken into tank for 6 months of aging, and that's it.
Lovely, really fascinating wine, and it sits I think nicely in the middle, because we're about to go into two of
we're going somewhere.
We're going somewhere, and I'm ready for it. I'm feeling it. I'm
really excited about the Blood of Judah, because that used to be one of my faves in its previous form, you know, with the carb in there, and it's really interesting. This is the first vintage that they've done that's 100% Sangiovese. So
last week, Baz and I did.
Who?
Yeah, fucking Van Houten himself. We did a Baller's Guide to Tuscany.
Oh yeah,
which was glorious.
Wow, Sangiovese.
100% my speed. And we did a lot of Sangiovese on that. We did the Fontodi Chianti Classico. We did the Poggio San Polo Rubio, Biondi Santis, Rosso di Montalcino.
Did we have that one?
No, we had the Fontodi Flaccinello della Pieve.
How did I get those mixed up?
Oh my god, was that cultured? So we did an awful lot of Sangio, and I've got to be honest with you.
Too much?
No.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I've completely gone off it. I was like,
the best wines weren't the Sangioveses.
oh,
The Petra by Petra, which
Yes.
is Cab Merlot, Cab Franc, and the I Sole e Olena Collezione Privata Cabernet Sauvignon.
that was a winner.
They were both outstanding. And
Wow.
the Solo Sole
Oh.
Vermentino was also amazing as well.
That one.
But we tried a lot of Sangioveses.
Yeah.
None of them, not a single fucking one of them, looked anything like this wine. None of them even came close to this wine.
What, the intensity of color?
The intensity of color was not the same. So Sangiovese, literal translation is sang. Well, I guess ancient Romans used to call so the Greeks, the leader of the gods was Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Romans took a huge amount of their history from their immediate neighbors, the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, who they saw as being poets and homosexuals.
Perfect.
They were the same in Rome, but for some reason they castigated the Greeks for doing it, even though they were doing it exactly the same amount, if not more so, in the Roman times. But there was something where it was anyway. We don't need to go into that. We don't need to go too historical. But Zeus was the king of the gods in ancient Greek, the pantheon of ancient Greek gods. Jupiter was the leader of the ancient Roman gods. And so blood of Jupiter literally is Sangiovese. Sangio, because they call them Joven or Jove or something like that. So the blood of Jupiter is the name of it, and it has it's a very unique coloration, Sangiovese, because it's quite a pale grape.
Yeah.
Quite a pale skin, and even though you have a bit like Nebbiolo, even though you can have a long sort of fermentation on the skins, or you can have a long maceration on the skins,
it'll never transfer.
You won't be getting this really dark and intense color. So why is this so dark?
It'll be hotter. In this case, it's just.
But Tuscany's hot.
Higher UV as well, so the grape.
I guess it's hot, but it's not South Australia hot.
So the grape itself, it mutates to its climate as well. So say if you've got a really good example of this is in Chile, where they've got like a hole in the ozone layer above a lot of where they grow their vineyards, where they grow their grapes, and there's a lot of UV exposure to the grapes. So the grapes themselves are mutating, and you're having to do canopy management different and things like that. Basically give the grapes their own little sort of sun umbrella, like little parasols, to protect them. So it could be that it's, higher UV exposure. So the grapes themselves, they're mutating. So if you were to have this Sangiovese and a Tuscan Sangiovese grape side by side, and you were to take them to the lab, you could probably tell that with the same grape, but they've matured and they've mutated differently as well.
Don't you just love the fact she's calling it Sangiovese? Sangiovese. Do me a favor, pronounce paella.
Paella.
Oh, it's not a fair thing to say, because Jen is obviously fully lettered in the language of Spanish, but Sangiovese.
It's not even Spanish.
Paella.
Yeah, Spanish. I don't know why I say it like that. Well, now I know that I say it like that. I'm never going to be able to say it.
No!
Sangiovese.
Sangiovese.
Just going to call it Sangio.
Sangio. Bit of Sangio.
Hello.
Oh my God, you're Sangiovese. Oh my God, yeah, my family's from Sangiovese.
Colour, much deeper, more sun exposure, thicker skins, more sort of, yeah.
This is the aging little Englander that's spending their retirement in the Costa del Sol.
Yeah.
More sun exposure, leathery skin.
Delicious. Yeah. So yeah, that color, like I said, it's still medium intensity. If you look down, finger thumb, you can still see through it. But
we are dealing with the rather spectacular ABV here of 14.9%, which is higher than any of the Tuscan Sangioveses we were trying last week. So Australia is clearly playing a role, but I guess the legs are quite quick as well. So I'm guessing this has been fermented until it is absolutely bone dry.
Yeah, fermented to dryness. So yeah, fermented until dry on skins. And you can tell it's going to have that texture. I am so intrigued by this wine. Like I said, I've not tried it since they took the carb out of there. But that was only last vintage as well. And these wines literally landed. Was it last week they landed in the UK?
Yeah, as soon as they did, immediately order.
Yeah, I texted you as soon as they landed. And I was like, yeah. We need to like get on these sort of things. So yeah, it was perfect timing for the tasting. Really perfect timing. It's like we planned it. Wow.
Oh my God.
It's planning. Wow. That is totally different to how it used to be. So this wine for me used to be like chocolate and cherries all day long.
I don't know. I'm still getting that.
I don't get as much chocolate anymore. I get more sort of like it's Black Forest Gatto, but it's not. I suppose that is chocolate and cherry, but it's
I'll tell you what it is.
Though.
I'll tell you what it is. It's deer chocolate. It's not.
Oh, deer chocolate. I was like, deer chocolate.
Yeah. You've not been on Joe Rogan's website where you can get deer flavored chocolate or something. No, it's not. It's expensive chocolate. In other words, it's high cacao content, slightly sort of grainy.
Yeah.
There's a bit of bitterness there.
Yeah.
And the cherry is not a cherry jam.
Cherry. No. I would say it's not a fresh cherry. I would say it's one of those ones you find in a jar.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a cherry jam. It's a marinated Marasca cherry.
Is that what it's called? Yeah, okay. In like syrup, and they're a little bit bougie.
and maybe a little bit boozy as well, like that.
And if I got some for Christmas, I'd be like, whoa, thank you. You're in a little hamper. You're like, whoa. Stuff that if you were to get it like when you were a kid, your parents get it and they're like, oh my God, they've just got a hamper that's full of everything that's not interesting. And now it's like, oh my God, marinated cherries in whatever.
Where are these olives from? Oh.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, a couple of years ago, this is a niche one. Again, going back to the chocolate and cherries, Hotel Chocolat did these like whole marinated cherries covered in really dark chocolate. And when you bit into them, it was like the cherry like burst.
Because it got like that.
But the chocolate was like so bitter. Oh, it was beautiful. I've looked for them again and they're not back in stores yet. So very upsetting.
Christmas just around the corner, ladies and gents. If you want to get Jen a present that she will treasure for the 11 minutes it takes her to eat the entire packet, that is what you need to find. The Hotel Chocolat Marasca cherries covered in dark
and they're not
chocolate.
In the normal packets. They're in like a little tub as well. I remember the tub. Anyway, I will get some. I go back on what I said. It is chocolate and cherry, but just not like. It's not as intense. I don't know. It's more bitter. It's more refined. It's more sort of. It's a bit more grown up, is what I'm trying to say.
It maybe doesn't have the cab just sort of chucking cassis at it like it's going out of fashion. There you go. Have some of that, dickhead. Oh, whatever. Fuck off. It's a little bit more taut.
Yeah.
A little bit more kind of like. It's kind of this is a wine that's got its shit together. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a wine that's had its kind of it's had its wild days of waking up on somebody's sofa at 9 o'clock in the morning, not knowing how they got there. This now it wakes up on somebody's sofa, but it knows exactly how it's got there.
Yeah.
And it's
still having a good time.
And we're gonna go get brunch. Come on, we're not fucking, we're not animals here. We're not gonna get a Mackey's breakfast. No, we're gonna go somewhere nice. We're gonna dress up, have a shower before we leave the house. Come on.
100%. That is exactly what this is. It's a lot more refined. It's definitely lighter in body than I remember it. And the best thing about this one as well, you can't feel the alcohol.
I'm not going to push back saying it's lighter in body than how you remember it, because I obviously can't know how you remember it. But
that's true.
It does have a really beautiful weight and texture to it.
This was my Christmas Day wine a couple of times though. So
for sure. The Icona has been as well. That was the shittest high five in the world, by the way.
That was a good one.
That was a damn good one.
I made up for it on that time.
But and I don't know if it's probably because I'm comparing it to all the Sangier that I was drinking last week.
Yes.
That were a lot younger, even though they were older. There was the 2020 Fontoli that we were trying. I think the Rosso Montalcino was maybe 2017. So they were older, but they were also younger. I think they were younger vines.
Yeah, they could go longer.
Which is one thing why it's given quite sort of volatile wine.
Yeah.
Whereas this feels kind of like silken and textured and weighty, while still being like vibrant and lively.
So these vines, they're younger than the Semillon, but they're 2005, so they're coming up to 20 years old. So they are. Is
that peak? Yeah. Was that where we're kind of like, this is?
Yeah, that's like
this is boss babe era.
Yeah. So between 3 and 5 years to get any sort of usable fruit at all, and then 5 to 12, 5 to 10 years sort of thing, which obviously depends which grape variety you're talking about. And then basically from 15 to 35, you're rocking basically. So this is literally in prime of its life, basically.
Here's a weird thing. I think if somebody loved Sangiovese, I don't know that I'd recommend this wine to them.
No, it's totally different.
Yeah.
It's
which is crazy.
I know, but if you think that you've completed Sangiovese and you want something different, try this. You know, you go, oh, you think you know all about Sangiovese? Well, pop over to the guys at Alpha Fox and Dice and give it a go. It does something you don't expect.
So we also tried the Rubio, which is
that a younger style?
Super young.
Yeah.
So I think they were, so for the Rosso di Montalcino from Beyond di Santi, the vines were under 10 years old. Because everything goes into their Brunello.
Yeah.
And the Brunello Reserva. That is so funny. You're looking at Poggio San Polo, and they make the Vigna Vecchia, the Pordenove, the Brunello Reserva, the Rosso di Montalcino, and the Rubio, and all this kind of stuff. And Beyond di Santi were like, no,
we're not doing
we
that.
make these 3 wines, and if you don't like them, then fucking die in a house fire. You know, it's sort of old school Italian. You go in there, and it's like we do tagliatelle or pappardelle with like a wild boar ragu. Or can I get that with the bucatini? No,
it doesn't work. No,
or that thing where you go in there and you go like, oh, can I get a coffee? And like before the meal? I'm like, yeah, I'm quite tired. I'm like, no. You have the coffee after the meal.
Yeah.
Can I get a cappuccino? No, like cappuccinos for the morning.
Coffee is espresso.
Yeah, it's espresso. It's cappuccino until 10 a.m. And then after that, it's espresso or go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Is that kind of vibe? Beyond Sandy was it. The Rubio by San Polo was still younger vines, but I think it was under 25 years old, which relatively between 10 years and 25 years old. That's a big jump though. But I guess for the Rubio, it's all just trying to monetize that wine prior to waiting for the Rosso, let alone waiting for the Brunello to actually mature and hit the market. But even that, with those young vines, that does nothing like the sort of the much more sinewy tannins, much more chewy, prominent tannins. Whereas this, they're
silky.
Like, are they there? They're there because it's a beautifully structured glass of wine, but they dominate fuck all. I mean, let's do the over the under the lip challenge.
Yeah, move it all the way around your mouth. You can really kind of like feel the tannins on the palate. Silky.
Yeah, integrated, nice. Lovely, warm, textured.
It's a friendly Sangiovese.
Oh, fucking big time!
Like big time. And I think, I don't know, like I said, that again, not to say the same thing again, but they're just doing something not what you'd expect. Like I said, a traditional Sangiovese drinker might be like, well, I want tannin, especially from a wine that's this young, and you're not going to get that because that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to please that same sort of crowd forever. They are intentionally doing something different, and just by being creative and letting
this for me is much more like, I would be much more confident opening and pouring this to people that liked red wine.
Yes.
Than a lot of the expressions that we tried. Even the Rosso was a £90 Rosso di Montalcino. I'll be more confident opening this and pouring and knowing that people would have a much more holistically enjoyable experience.
You don't have to know about wine to enjoy this wine. Yeah. And I think that's the main thing from Alpha Fox and Dice. You don't have to even know what grapes are in it. It doesn't say anything about that on the front. That's not the story that they want to tell. They're saying, if you want to look at the grapes in it, you can look at where they come from. But all in all, it's an enjoyable wine that's approachable, it's friendly and relaxed.
You know what it is? It's a wine made by a kid under 30 years old. And I'm 40, so I can call somebody under 30 a kid without it being demeaning. It's made by a kid that's making wine that he wants to drink, and that his family would want to drink, and his friends would want to drink. It's not making a wine that has to be made this way because it's been made that way for 240 years.
Yeah, no, it's a breath of fresh air. That's what that is in terms of Sangiovese as
well. It's not how I remember it.
No, because it's different wine.
But it is, and it's a really a really pleasurable wine drinking experience, which sounds quite sort of
sounds like it, yeah, it sounds like
it's not you're not saying a lot. No, it's a pleasure to drink this wine.
I absolutely love this.
Is it still would it still be your Christmas Day wine?
I think it'd be like my second.
Third.
Yeah. It maybe wouldn't be the
first.
I don't know. Actually, it could be. You know, I don't know. I don't think it'd be. I'm not saying that it's not a main event wine, because it is, but you know, I think it used to be a little bit more sort of like grandiose. You know,
the problem is, Jem,
what
started from the bottom, now we're here.
It's true, actually.
Started from the bottom, now right.
Yeah.
So now this delicious £40 wine, £36.5.
Yeah.
With 15% off if you use Alpha Box 15 at checkout.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our main event wine is now 3 figures. You know.
Well, you know, it's one of those things.
Yes.
It's called growth, baby.
No, it's called fucking overdrafts.
On to the winemaking.
Before we do, Cat Day, velvety smooth and mature. Get the pricey chocolate comparison.
Yes, yeah. The mature is what's coming across in this wine. You know, it's done all of its thinking. It's done all of its party days. You know, it's really kind of just it's in its heyday. You know,
but
yeah.
Those days never go away. You always remember. You always remember them.
Yeah, you know, it still looks fun, doesn't it? It's still like, you know, you're like, who me?
Can still dress up nice. Can still look hot to fucking trot, right? But
when you were drunk and then someone goes, "What's that?" And you're like, "Nothing."
Well, I've got a Chinese symbol for man tattooed on the base of my back, like a tramp stamp that I actually found out meant husband. So let's not talk about shitty tattoos. Okay, Jen Frost? Yeah. I was gonna say it's like, you know, you can still dress up like you're going out and hitting the town, but you're going out at 6 p.m, not 10 p.m.
2.
Yeah. I'm fucking having another drip of this. Would you like another little?
No, I'm good. Don't worry. Yeah. So onto a little bit of the wine.
You can tell who has to drive after this tasting.
Oh, I know, it's tiny little baby sips, and I'm really upset. Anyway, so a little bit of the winemaking just to round that one off. So like I said, yeah, grapes planted in 2005, so they're really kind of coming into their own now. And we are in McLaren Vale. The grapes themselves are destemmed. So destemmed in a little bit more of a gentle way. When you look at a destemmer, it's actually a little bit of like it's like a corkscrew in a barrel, and that corkscrew is kind of like going round, and it basically strips the berries off, and the berries fall through the bottom and get caught and transported and whatever. And then the kind of, what do you call it? Not the comb. What's it called? Like the stalks and the stems and the bunch will just stay on the top. So by the end of it, it looks kind of like, you know, like a hairbrush with too much hair around it. That's what it looks like from the top down. So all your fruits underneath, and on the top it's all
That's really good.
I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah, all of the little stemmy, stalky bits on the top, but they've done it in a really gentle way. So they've actually change the sort of intensity of some of like the rollers too, so you're really leaving as much whole bunch in there as possible. So it is not whole bunch, sorry, whole berry in there as possible. It's then fermented until dry. So like I said, it's not a wine that's got sort of any residual sugar or anything like that. It's fermented till dry, and that takes about 10 days.
Considering it's fermented to dry, and considering that Sangiovese is classically so high acid and so high tannin, it is still an incredibly voluptuous wine.
Yeah,
you know, which is a testament to the terroir of South Australia, but also to the choices made by Sam.
Yeah, definitely. And after that initial fermentation period, it goes and spends 12 months still in contact with its lees as well. So I wouldn't say it's hazy or like grainy, but it's definitely had a lot of sort of extended lees contact. So that's 12 months in, again, old French barrique. So we're noticing a little bit of a theme here, but this time a small percentage of that is new barrels as well.
20% new, right?
I don't know whether I get that in terms of like
no way
or the, you know, I'm looking for it now, but it's not.
It's
integrated,
completely integrated. There is not that doesn't stand out. But like, so the analogy I often make about French wine, because obviously I don't have the breadth of knowledge and understanding that you do. The analogy I make about French wine is so good,
too good.
When you get into the sort of the upper echelons, French wine is so good because it doesn't necessarily have, and the same could be applied to elements of Italy, elements of Spain. It doesn't have super extremes of temperature and terroir. And so if you have a super extreme, like at really high altitude or really incredibly hot or really incredibly cool or this, that, and the other, it unbalances the wine. It drags it out into one thing, and that then dominates the rest of the palate, the rest of the stuff that's going on. This is my analogy. Whether it's accurate, whether it's true, so if she rolls her eyes before I finish this analogy, you know I fucked it up, right? Because it doesn't have super extremes in terroir and climate. Everything is more compact in terms of, if you looked at like a flavor wheel, everything is more kind of like in the center rather than all the way down there, right? And as a consequence, it means that you have incredibly nuanced, complex, ever developing flavors going on, right? Because you don't have one thing that just drags it out and it's all about altitude, or it's all about the crazy soil they have, or it's all about everything all plays a role together, one hand washing the other, hand inside glove, and it all kind of like works together like that. And I have no idea why I brought that up.
Me neither.
What were you talking about?
Barrels, bringing it together. You can't tell that it's 35% new oak.
Yes. So because you're using only 20%, it's a little bit like that. Because if you were using more than 20%, it would dominate, and it would then be playing a much bigger role in the wine
than you want it to.
Does. Yeah, exactly.
So after that, after it's had a little bit of that small percentage in oak, it's then blended together and it's aged for a further 12 months in cask. So that's why it is so well integrated, because it's meant to be. You know, the winemaking that goes on here is just, it seems so simple when you're reading it out, but you know, I mentioned that he's worked in a lot of other places, so you know, he's worked all around all around different parts of Australia, so McLaren Vale, Yarra Valley, Mornington Peninsula, and then you've also done a bit of time in Rheinhessen in Germany, Barolo in Italy, and then Monterey in the USA. So it's really cool that he's got such a, you know, a breadth of knowledge, and he can apply that to each specific vineyard in order to improve the Alpha Box and Dice wines, with not just every single vintage, but you know, every single release and every single letter has a different sort of winemaking approach. And yeah, it's like the heartbeat of it almost. You know,
you guys got to go onto the Alpha Box and Dice website and just look at because what we can get in this country through Jen's company she works for, Boutonneau, is a tip of the fucking iceberg. There is so much going on. Tell me we can get the Obligato.
No,
just released a Gruner Veltliner Obligato. I'll drag it up on there.
I saw that you posted that, and I was like, it's not. No, so not all of the wines, you know, they have a massive portfolio, and you know, not all of them get brought in, sort of thing. And it is a lot more. We bring in less of their whites, I believe. I'm not on the team that brings in the wines or decides them, unfortunately, but I do get to go to a lot of new product tastings, which is very exciting. And so it's more of their reds that we bring in. I think as a wine drinking nation, we expect more red to be coming from Australia than white.
Yeah, agree.
So it's a bit more of a commercial decision.
However, tell me
it looks sick.
Tell me that you don't want to get that fucker.
Yeah, I know.
Like, look at that looks brilliant. So that's a Gruner Veltliner, and if you go into just their whole selection here on their website, there's the Nebbiolo. I'm pretty sure we can get that, but fuck Nebbiolo. Then they've got all of these boys, the Hercules, Golden Misterioso. I've never seen that before.
I've tried that. The
Ripasso. Yeah. I'd love to try that.
It's difficult.
The Pate.
European rules, because Ripasso, you can't call it that without it.
Really? Mind you, Brexit means Brexit, mate.
Yeah, I know, but
we're out the fucking.
Still a bit of a.
Yeah, well, having just invested loads of time and money into the only time it's looked this good is when Amber was running the gaff in Prestwich with all of the cheese. She was so good at that. But now English Brie is written on fucking everything. They have taken whatever opportunities they can. Yeah, for sure. There's got one called the Truffler, which is his truffled English Brie.
It says English Brie.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
There we go. But these are some of the other ones. So you guys got loads of, it's called Italian plastic.
Yeah, it's that different range.
Yeah. Taro range is a range all on its own. This looks like
that Tozo is wild. That's Sangiovese as well.
That looks quite interesting. also quite boring at the same time.
That's just meant to look boring. It's a comment on, yeah. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing as well.
I'd like to try it because it says very special, but then you look at the label and it's like, oh, fucking dull.
Apparently, it's like it's a mick take. Yeah, it's a mick take of a really famous Aussie wine. Yeah.
But then you look at these, the XO11, the XO10, X009, 007. They look fucking gorgeous.
I know.
But look at all of these wines. Like, we can't get any of these. GSC. Is that a Muscat Semillon?
Yeah.
Enigma, RIP.
That one's, yeah, it's changed though.
They do have a Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Also,
that looks bad boy, that, doesn't it? It's weird.
Gordon Montefiore Magnum.
Wow.
Still there. But I mean, we're still going. They've got single vineyard Icona, which is quite a nice little.
We used to have that, the Rebel.
Yeah.
We used to have the Taro. We've had some of the X in as well.
I don't know that I've ever seen any of the X.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Alpha Box and Dice, what a selection! Cool. And since we've just chatted about the Icona single vineyard, let's have a little go at just their sort of regular expression. The 2018 Alpha Box and Dice. Long live the Red King! Once revered, his coat of arms is now a pair of crossed bindles. Bindles.
I don't know what a bindle is.
We're under a shabby pork pie hat.
Are you just making this up?
While shuffling along interminably, he mutters to himself that he'll be back one day. Just you wait. These guys are on fucking crack when they're writing these bottle descriptions on the back of it. That means none of that means anything to anybody.
I don't know what that means. I can't even make an excuse for that. And I'm usually really good at placating and making excuses for things.
There's one thing that Barry doesn't do very well when we're tasting his wines. When we're tasting his wines, all of his wines are the most incredible things that you've ever tried in your entire life. I'm like, no, some of them are shit. No, I'm not going to say which ones, but some of them are shit. But you can't.
Hey, not all wine is good wine, but sometimes it's the money making wine. So look at the color of that.
Right. So this is the 2018 Icona Cabernet Sauvignon from the McLaren Vale, which Cabernet Sauvignon and McLaren Vale are like.
What was the question?
Red rags to a bull for me. Red rags to a bull. These wines are fucking McLaren Vale Cabernet. Sign me up. I'm in already. Memories of Icona put this already even further up, but this is 15.9%. So 15.9%. So I am.
Hello. I've had a blocked nose for 3 weeks.
I am afeared. I'm
Jen.
Dickhead. I'm afeared that booze, because I don't like super boozy wines. Like, I can go up, like, I remember I still have nightmares about that 16.5% Amarone that we did. That was
I didn't taste that, you guys did.
That was bad. But the point being that
it's gonna be great.
Especially with Yank wines, I'm thinking Nobeds, Orange Swift. Delicious. I'm scared. But having tried the rest of the range, it's gonna be integrated, right?
This was always a big wine. It was always a big wine, and there's been several years since I've tried it. Probably about 3-4 years since I've tried it.
I mean, it looks like fucking Max fucking cold brew coffee.
It's inky, yeah.
Yeah. The legs are. I mean,
stains the glass as well. Hello.
No, I mean, I'm not getting anything. Nothing. Still nothing. It's like hang on.
Polished your glass,
hang on.
Isn't it?
No. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No.
I've got no legs up there, but I am getting legs down there. So it's like it's stuck there and it's like I'm going fucking nowhere.
It's big.
I mean, yeah, it looks like cold brew coffee, and then around the edge, it's got a kind of like bricky garnet.
Yeah. This is just the oldest wine we're tasting.
Yeah.
A year.
By a year compared to the Dead Winemakers, so yeah, which was super
fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that rustiness around the outside.
What is that? That is cedar, sandalwood,
cinnamon.
Cinnamon roll. Cinnamon.
It is. I can feel a bit of that alcohol right on the back of my nose though.
It's got a tingle, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, other things on the palate, it's a little bit more sort of definitely definitely dark fruit, you know. Perfumed as well. I do get perfume, but
I get cologne rather than perfume. So
Yeah.
perfumey, I always think of
like delicate.
Without wishing to apply traditional gender rules too hard. But for perfume, I think there's something that a girl might wear that might be light and sort of with high notes, whereas I think of a cologne as having
when you picked up leather and stuff. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What's the musk? A musk.
Yes. I was gonna be like sandalwood. I don't know what's chin chin.
The best of the fucking night.
Wow. That's outrageous.
Quite feisty.
It's fighty.
It's quite feisty.
But then you get this lovely sort of like ripe, bouncy, cherry sort of thing going through it at the end. And it doesn't linger. It does not got that like burny sort of heat. Yeah.
It doesn't have an alcohol burn.
No.
It doesn't aggressively ruin the palate. It doesn't fight everything else off, but it's fucking there.
It's undeniable that it's a big, bold, fighty wine. But yeah, that is beautiful. It's velvety at the same time, though. It's literally like crushed velvet.
Like the concentration,
the tannins as well. Where?
Forget it.
Where?
They don't exist.
How have they done that?
The concentration of flavor is.
I don't get it.
Or like you almost don't know how they've managed to do that without it being some kind of vinification tweak.
Yeah, like a life hack.
Yeah,
like a shock.
By the way, with the Baron Bygod,
I know that cheese. I was really enjoying that with the Sangiovese before. Ooh, that was amazing. Yeah, this is a lot. It's a big wine. It takes up space. That's what this wine does. You know.
See, this is a fucking statement wine.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
this is a wine which makes a statement above its 41.5 quid price tag.
Maybe this would have to be my Christmas wine.
I mean, like, so long as you don't mind not tasting turkey, but then turkey doesn't taste of fucking anything anyway. And actually,
exactly.
you're probably not having turkey, are you?
No, probably not. More like pheasant. No, I'm kidding.
I bet you are, aren't you, though? She's so bougie.
70-day ex-dairy cow, probably, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, gone are the days.
Really, a beautiful fennel note.
Good. It's
got a kind of crushed rock / graphite-y note.
I get a little bit coffee as well. I don't know whether it's because you were saying about coffee at the start, and then maybe I was looking for coffee, but yeah, I definitely get that sort of like mocha pot coffee, like a bit stronger, a bit more of that like tumultuous process, not like a filter or a V60 that's a little bit smoother, a little bit lighter. It's a mocha pot. It's like grrr.
You can tell that the love of your life has got a fucking coffee shop, and I'm the best coffee shop in the fucking north of Manchester. Have you seen that video of the ice cream taster?
No.
And he goes like that. He goes like, "What I'm gonna do? I'm take a little bit on this spoon. I'm gonna take a little bit." And I go, "Oh man." I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it.
We're all gonna watch it together.
We absolutely are. But when you do that, it highlights how potent the booze is initially, and once your palate kind of goes, it's like when you get into a sauna.
Yeah.
You know, when you get into a sauna, and then you like fuck, or a cold plunge, which I'm not going to talk about because this isn't a. Are
you partial to a cold plunge?
No.
Oh.
No wank. I've got one in the back garden. Yeah. Dog shit. It fucking sucks. Like God, cold plunge somewhere that was warm.
Not a cold plunge then. That's a bath.
No. I'd go into cold water as long as I got out of it and I was somewhere hot.
Oh, I get what you mean now. Wow, I misunderstood that. You gotta find it.
Come on, let me find. Oh, yes.
Oh God.
Tasting what we take a small amount right off the top. It doesn't take much. That's the warmest part right here. I'm going to invert the spoon.
Ooh.
Cover all 9,000 taste bud. Aerate it. Warm it up. Driving up that top note. That cream. Pure vanilla.
How is he doing that?
Sweeteners.
How's it still in his mouth?
How's he talking?
That's a 10.
It's a 10.
Love it. But do it
so long at the end. It's 10.
It's a 10. Then he's allowed like a fucking
next tasting. Everybody starts from like,
let's do it with this wine.
Wait.
So take it up, drive it up with the top notes.
Invert the glass.
It's a 10.
I do it without choking. It's a liquid.
You gotta swallow the wine first, you fucking oh my god.
It's
Well,
a 10.
it does drive it up though, doesn't it?
Drives it up.
Get that top note.
It's a 10.
That's a 10.
I had the urge to just be like, then it's a 10. Joof. Yeah.
Fucking stunning. Great tasting notes here. This is great. Beautiful licorice and deep red fruit. Lovely texture. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Absolutely fantastic finish of the tasting. What else do we need to know about this? Because why is it so boozy? Is that just because it's McLaren Vale? Why is it so concentrated in flavor? Why is it so powerful? Why is it so beautifully integrated?
So I can answer some of those maybe. So from McLaren Vale, all the fruit. So it's destemmed and it's crushed. So again, we're getting rid of those stems and stalks. So you're just dealing with the lovely sort of like ripe, plush fruit.
I just realized as I was doing that with the cheese, I was probably going into the microphone, which by the way is not good ASMR.
Perfect. Yeah, so it's destemmed, so you're dealing with just like the lovely ripe berries, then gently crushed and left for 2 weeks on the skin. So this, correct me if I'm wrong, I think has the longest maceration period out of all of them. This wine takes basically the longest.
That would come as no surprise to anybody, I'm sure.
And that terms of intensity of color and just how intense the wine is in general. So there's a lot of kind of thought that's gone into it. There's a lot of time that's gone into it as well. So left for 2 weeks on the skins before stepping back and letting the juice sit in barriques for 24 months. So there's a little bit of new oak in there as well, which adds
not a little bit, not a little bit. A third of all of the wine goes into brand new oak.
Yeah,
that's a lot. When you consider that, which one was 20%? Was it the Mistress?
Yeah. No, Blood of Jupiter. Sorry, Blood of Jupiter. 20%.
So that was 20%, which is a fifth, and now we're into a third.
Yeah, true. So that's adding to that like intensity. It's adding to that spiciness. It's adding to the body. It's adding to the warmth as well.
What kind of oak?
I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be. I mean, because he spent time in America, you think maybe he's using a little bit of American oak for this, but
they use all French oak for the Mistress.
Yeah, all of them. The Mistress, even the Golden Delicioso.
No, sorry, the Dolcetto was no oak. Anytime
there's been oak used, it's French. It's Burgundian.
French barriques in the what's it? It's the Blood of Jupiter. So I guess it must have been the Mistress where it was 80-20.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, judging by that, you can kind of extrapolate that it's going to be French oak, but I couldn't find anything to say which exactly.
I mean, are we getting
it was?
Are we getting loads of desiccated coconut? And we're not, are we?
None of us have said like you said, like coconut or caramel or vanilla. None of us have even said vanilla. You know what I mean? That's a big American high toast barrel, high vanillins, high caramel. Like it's none of that. It's got to be French oak. So yeah, and then it sits in those barriques for 24 months. Like I said, like Tom said, a chunk of that, a third of that is new.
That's amazing.
So yeah, classic, approachable, expressive Cabernet, just like the icons that came before it. That's how they describe it.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Stunning. And a great crescendo to the tasting, which I'm always a fan of. You don't want the last wine to be a fucking limpin. Yeah. A limpin. Limping in.
Yes. Limpet. Is that not the word?
No, like a limpin.
All right.
Limp. A comma.
I don't know.
Apostrophe. It's a phrase.
I know a lot about some things.
It's a phrase.
Not a lot about phrases.
It's a phrase.
That's all right.
And it's not a phrase. I just made it up right there. That's why it was clumsy and
I believed him.
Bullshit.
Did you see that? I believed him.
Yeah. Right. Time for a 1, 2, 3.
Wow. Oh no. I knew.
I'll go first. 5, 4, 1. Dead Winemakers would drink again. Mistress, slightly underwhelmed personally for the Mistress. The Icona was everything I wanted to be, and the Blood of Jupiter was also not what I was expecting.
Yeah,
but also far overdid it. But that's almost unfair because these two were set up to win in terms of my memory of those wines and in terms of what I wanted them to do. But they did them. They did them. Drive up that top note. The Golden Delicioso, I loved. I absolutely loved it.
I love that.
I thought it was fantastic.
Just retasted it, and I would drink it warm. I wouldn't even drink it cold.
Okay,
I'd drink it warm.
That's because you're a psychopath, babe.
It's marmalade and just delicious. I think my favorites are going to be. Don't know. Maybe 4-3-1.
4-3-1. Really?
It feels like an absolute injustice to everything.
The Dolcetto has been is the ginger stepchild here. It's just been ignored. It's the middle kid. Maybe that's the problem, because wine number one is a brand new wine and also a very, very different style of wine.
And that's why I've put it in my lineup as well, because of how much I prefer it like this.
Yeah.
I just retasted the Dolcetto and it's pure licorice now. It's pure fennel. It's completely changed. And now I'm like, I've done that an injustice. Yeah, no, they're all absolutely banging. They're all banging.
Well, the problem is I don't know which one's which. That's quite stained. I think that might be the Sangiovese.
That's a bit more lighter. That's got to be the Dolcetto, right? Yeah. Honestly, absolutely banging wines. Really great wines.
Yeah, the Mistress still falls a bit flat for me. That's really beautiful. Right, so I mean, Dave's gone 5-1-4. And Kat's gone 5-1-2. So we've finally got a bit of love for the Dead Winemakers. So there we go.
That's good.
That is good. What a great tasting. And I tell you what, it's been lovely to spend a couple of hours drinking wine and having a chat with you, babe.
Nice. Yeah.
High five.
Oh no. Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming. I'd love to do it again. If you've got another Friday, maybe in December, that we can put something together and you can come along and do something. Otherwise, let's do some shit in the new year with your portfolio. We've got some lovely stuff of yours on the shelves at Grape. I'm thinking, the Chateau CH Deloche champagne, by the way, is outstanding and has gone down really, really well. I'm trying to think what else. The Sumar range also. Can't keep Peculiar Mr. Pat on the shelves.
Oh, the cutie guy. That one was my Sunday wine. I love that little guy. It's just reliable and cute and nice and drinkable. And I'm always been a fan of Merlot. So
if you've got some stuff that you'd like to bring down and show me, I'd love to see it. But thank you very much for coming.
No, my pleasure.
An absolute pleasure. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one, I really hope. Thanks a lot. Great to see you back, Jen. Yes, it is always lovely to have Jen back in the building. Guys and girls, Jah bless Haile Selassie, Rastafari, and all the rest of it. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you very much indeed. Make sure that you use Alpha Box 15 to get 15% off. And if you order it tonight, I'll deliver it to you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.